Titans just wrapped up their first of 2 joint practices with the Atlanta Falcons, and it was a rough day for the Titans. Not necessarily a bad day, just not a good day either. We're going to talk about what happened at practice and maybe some larger concerns we have about this team for this season. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver, back on the podcast after missing Saturday night's live stream episode. With me as always, Justin Melo. Justin, how was that live stream? I heard good things.
I thought it went well. People were entertained. They were in the chat. They were participating. The view count was very good, so you guys showed up for that. Appreciate you sticking with us with Ryan Watson hosting in Graver's place. Thought it went well. Feels like it's been a long time since I potted with you for some reason. I don't know why. 2 days in a row without potting. You weren't on Saturday. We've been getting used to doing episodes every single day, it feels like. So good to be back today to recap the first of 2 Titans-Falcons joint practices.
Yeah, it does feel like we were potting basically every day. So when we, it's been since last Thursday that we did one together. That feels like an eternity in this new world that we're in of just producing content all the time, all for you guys out there. So if you're tuned in, we really appreciate you. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below. What did you see that might have you concerned from Titans-Falcons joint practice number 1? I'm going to read something that Nick Suss wrote in his recap from the Tennessean that I think sets the tone, sets the table well for the discussions we're about to have. Nick wrote, "It wasn't so much a bad showing as it was one that's hard to even find one play worth being enthusiastic about." So as I said, it wasn't bad, it wasn't good. There were definitely bad moments. There were maybe a few good moments, but definitely fewer good moments than bad. And that's what we're going to talk about here, starting with, I think, an overall theme that everyone who was at practice has been reporting on, which is this lack of urgency for this Titans team. And Jarvis Brownlee Jr., Chig Okonkwo, Jeffrey Simmons all separately said in post-practice media scrums that they are a bit concerned about this team's, tendency to start slow. They started slow in the one joint practice they had with the Bucs last week. Then they came back, in that practice and made it a pretty competitive, even day. I would argue the first team offense started slow in Saturday night's preseason game when they went 3 and out after a Van Jefferson drop on second down after Cam Ward bailed from a clean pocket, missed a crossing open Calvin Ridley, and then threw the ball away on third down. But they bounced back on their second drive. And they start slow in this practice with the Atlanta Falcons. And there was some element of a bounce back that we'll talk about, but it wasn't the same kind of bounce back as they had in Tampa Bay last week. And the issue with these slow starts that I would be able to look past it a little easier if this hadn't been a massive problem last year. And Jeffrey Simmons even alluded to the fact that, we start slow and all of a sudden we're down 28-0. That's the example Jeffrey Simmons used. So it's in the players' heads. It's in our heads as people covering the team. What is the deal with the Titans starting slow? Is this a coaching problem? Is this a player accountability problem? Is this just a product of being on the road since last Wednesday when they left Nashville for Tampa Bay? What do you think? What do you make of this, Justin? And how concerned should Titans fans be, acknowledging that it is still just August 12th?
Yeah, I think the boring answer, but the truthful one is probably TBD, right? I'll say Jeffrey Simmons' answer was pretty concerning to me, right? He's a passionate player, so he's going to do that and get maybe a little carried away with it at times. But, no one wants to hear, but the truth is the truth. But no one wants to hear alluding to last season and 28-0. That's probably the Commanders game that he's referencing, right? I think that's the one where they fell in that huge hole. That was right after an emotional win against the Texans, right? So they've tried to work hard this offseason to, beat this out of this team, if you will. But to hear 3 players say it separately after this practice, they start, like you said, started slow against the Bucs practice. So you could say they started slow in that game. They were down 10-0 right before they got on the board, and then start slow in this practice, which felt really slow. Right, the Falcons made some big plays, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, and the Titans could get nothing going early in this one. I'm concerned because you've got a second-year head coach who went 3-14 and if we've got a question about Brian Callahan, you and I have both said repeatedly over the last year, we think he's got a great offensive mind, but we don't know about his ability to be a head coach. I don't know a whole lot about his ability to lead men. Like, if you are bad at those things, and I'm not saying he is, we don't know for sure yet, but if you are bad at those things, these are the signs, right? It's you're a penalized team last year, you're bad on special teams, you start slow, you go into this next offseason here, training camp, that starting slow is still a bit of an issue at joint practices and maybe in the preseason games as well. They've got to prove once the season comes that they could get past that, because in all honesty, I don't know that it's something Brian Callahan could survive, right? Like, if they're a slow starting team for a second year in a row, that probably means they're losing a lot of football games, and it might mean they're getting blown out in some of them, because when you start slow, you fall behind 28-0, and that might be a bit of an extreme example, but that's the one Jeffrey Simmons offered, and you don't recover in those when that happens. So they've got to nip this in the butt, and they got to do it real fast. And they got to do it real fast. And so I was going to throw it to you, but I want to say, like, not that you're using it as an excuse, but you said at the end, well, they're on the road, since last Thursday. Newsflash, they're going to be on the road a lot during the regular season. 5 of their first 8 games are on the road. They've got 3 away games in a row from like week 4 to 6, I think it is. So we're not. I promise you, if they're 1-5, you're not going to be sitting here going, they've been on the road a lot, let's forgive them. They're not good on the road. They start slow on the road. No, they've got to figure this out, because they're going to go on the road a lot in October.
Well, to be fair, they're going to come home between those road games. Like, they left Nashville last Wednesday for Tampa Bay, and then they flew straight from Tampa Bay to Atlanta. So they haven't had a chance to come home at all. But no, it's a fair point. And I would excuse it, maybe partially excuse it, and blame it on that if this hadn't been a theme throughout all of training camp pretty much so far, and all of last season pretty much. So that it's a continuation of that theme that makes me sort of dismiss this. Like, I can't just dismiss this as being, they've been on the road for almost a week. Like, no, you need to find a way to have that adversity moment and show up when it happens. I do think that there's some element of Brian Callahan designed it this way on purpose to make it more difficult on them, more emotionally and mentally taxing, for multiple reasons. And one is because you want practices and training camp to be harder than what you're going to face in the regular season, so that you feel prepared to take on what happens in the regular season. If it's easier than practice, that means you should have success. And secondly, because this whole offseason has been about bringing the team together, playing for the guy next to you, and going through some shit together tends to bond you together. And so, everyone is going through the same thing of like, man, I miss my family. I miss my home comforts. They're all going through that together. The only place they have to like lean on for comfort is each other. And that bonds them together more. So I'll take a couple bad practice days in the midst of a long, road trip in the middle of training camp, if it means that the team grows from it. And that's the hope. And I want to be clear that this whole talking point that we're bringing up right now isn't to hit the panic button and say, Brian Callahan's doomed, this team is going to be bad. Like, that's not what we're saying at all. We're saying this has been a recurring problem, and we're going to acknowledge it now as something that we're definitely going to be watching throughout the season. I think your very first answer to this question put it best. TBD. It's all TBD. It's August. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it a little bit. I just want fans to be clear that, like, we're not in panic mode here. We're not in disaster mode. But there is definitely a timeline that we could be going down that could lead us there. And so we're acknowledging it now. I want to read a Jarvis Brownlee Jr. quote from after practice, because number one, I think it sums up the day pretty well. And number two, it's just kind of funny. He said, overall, as a practice, it was all right. It wasn't our intention, how we usually come out here and play, but there's always lessons to learn. We've got to come back out here tomorrow, going 10 times harder and practice 10 times stronger. Because if you ask me, from our side of the ball, because I couldn't really see our offense, it was all right. It was all right. It was bullshit. We can play way better than that. It starts with the leaders, though. We've got to come out here fast. We've got to come out here and set the tone, set the energy, and it's up to us to do that. That's why there's always the next day to improve. So I like a few things he said here. First, I like that he was like trying to say it was all right, and then he was like, nah, actually, I'm just going to be honest. It was bullshit. We sucked today. But also the fact that he's taking accountability for it as one of the team's leaders, which even as a second-year player, I think he could easily grow into being one of the team's leaders. That the players are going to take accountability. Simmons, we talked about. Chigakonkwo said something similar. The players are taking accountability. So whether or not we want to blame Brian Callahan or not, the players do have it like within them, their power to have an effect on this and try to improve it. If the head coach does or doesn't do it, or if it's his fault or not his fault, it doesn't matter if the players can come together and say, screw this, guys, we need to be better. And then they are better. I think this is all a setup for tomorrow. Really, like we're not going to make any determination based on how this practice goes. And honestly, if they have another bad practice tomorrow, it doesn't mean they're a bad team. They probably are a bad team, but it doesn't mean that just because of one bad or two bad practices. But it would be nice to see them bounce back strong tomorrow, to take what happened today, internalize it, realize they need to be better, and come out strong tomorrow. I think that's what I'd like to see. Again, no like sweeping determinations about this team will be made in August, but this is what we have to talk about right now, so we're talking about it, and I think that's where I'm at. I'm not hitting the panic button. I'm not saying this team is doomed. I just bet money on this team to win 7+ games when I was in Vegas over the weekend. So like I have some faith in their ability to at least get to 7 wins, but right now, there are some little red flags that are raising, and that's what we're talking about now, is just like pointing those out and hoping that they can be addressed before it's too late.
Well, I would definitely like to see them have a good practice tomorrow, and we'll be back to recap it again. I think you kind of sold that a little short, because for me, when Jeffrey Simmons is talking about we've got to start fast, and I'm tired of saying we got to do it tomorrow, and Jarvis Brownlee's talking about we want to come back and have a better day. It wasn't our best tomorrow. Well, I want to see it tomorrow. The good football team would be able to respond tomorrow. And yes, you're right. Not the end-all be-all if it doesn't happen. They haven't lost a football game yet officially, not one that matters. So no, you're not doomed when you're 0-0. But when you're talking about that, you're talking about how disappointed you were and you want to practice better, you want to practice faster. If you don't actually do it, then yeah, that's a bit of a problem.
They're undefeated, Justin. Preseason doesn't count. Regular season games.
I said they haven't lost a football game that matters.
2025 Titans are undefeated.
Regardless of what happens tomorrow, they'll be 0-0.
All right, let's talk about some things like specifically that happened in practice and the reason that we're calling it a slow start and a lack of urgency. Oh, one last point I wanted to make on the lack of urgency. This is something Easton Freeze wrote about in his practice report. I thought it was a really good point because I've been thinking about this since the preseason game, essentially, that when it comes down to roster cutdown day, if I was doing a projected 53-man roster right now, Justin, I think I would only project 50 players on the Titans to make the roster. Now, obviously, their first roster will have 53 guys on it, but then all the cuts around the league are going to happen. And the way that the Titans operated over the weekend, which we'll get to, the roster moves they made, tells me that they are not happy with the depth and the back end of this roster, and that they're going to be constantly churning the depth of this roster. And the fact that the Titans have an extreme lack of depth means that they're probably going to make, I would guess they make 3 waiver claims, maybe more. Or maybe they sign somebody who's not a waiver claim, but like a Preston Smith that they were reportedly interested in after training camp, after cuts, and those guys are like ready to actually get back into football. I think that they're like only 50 guys that are in training camp with the Titans right now will actually be on the 2025 Titans team. And that's another element of the urgency factor. And this is what Easton Freeze wrote about, is that every player on this team is fighting for their life. If you're not a starter, if you haven't locked yourself into a starting role, you are fighting for a roster spot, because the special teams and the depth is all going to be determined by, like, just because you're a second string guy, if you aren't given anything on special teams, they may be fine with a third string guy taking your, like, so the lack of urgency is concerning to me from that regard, because I almost wonder, like, do these guys not realize what's at stake for them? And I didn't want to add too long of an addendum to that conversation, but I thought that was a good point that Easton brought up, and it's something I've been thinking about too, so thought I'd say it there while we're talking about urgency.
Well, it's safe to assume. I mean, they made 2 waiver claims last year in Daryl Baker Jr. and Ali Gay, both of them who are still on the team as of right now. So they've got the number 1 waiver wire priority. Yeah, they're definitely going to put that to good use. So yeah, I think, if there was a line in Vegas, 2.5 on how many waiver claims they make, and you'd probably be crazy to hit under on that.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be only 2, but I don't think it'll be 5+ or anything. Let's not get crazy, but I'd guess it's in the 3 to 4 bucket.
I agree. I think they're going to be churning at linebacker, at cornerback, possibly at edge, possibly at tackle, and we'll see how all that plays out. But that's what I'm expecting right now. Okay, into the actual practice, things that happened today. Let's do this. Let's break this up between offense and defense. So we'll start with the offense. Up and down day for the offense. I would say more downs than ups. Cam Ward, more downs than ups. We'll start with Cam Ward, who in the 11-on-11 periods Nick Suss tracked Cam Ward as having a 14 for 29 day. That's about a 48% completion percentage. He had 2 interceptions, one where he just didn't see a zone defender sitting underneath over the middle and threw it right into his belly. Another where it was a 3rd and short and he tried to squeeze a slant into Alec Iamaner. AJ Terrell tips the ball into the air and it's picked off by Jesse Bates and I think possibly returned for a touchdown. The Falcons forced 6 total turnovers in this practice, and 3 of them were returned for touchdowns. So this is that kind of game, like if this was a game, this is that kind of day where that slow start puts you in a 28-0 type of hole, because not only is the defense giving up 52-yard touchdowns that we'll talk about in a second, but then the offense, not only are they turning the ball over, but they're not just turning it over to where the defense can hold them to a field goal. They're giving up return touchdowns. So a spiraling bad day if this was, to happen in a game setting. Luckily, it's not a game setting, it's a practice, and we don't know what the offense was trying to accomplish because there were multiple reports from all the beat writers out there, Falcons guys, Titans guys, who were saying that the Titans were throwing a ton of short stuff in all of the team periods, that there was basically 0 deep targets in this practice at all. It's kind of what we heard at the very beginning of training camp before they started doing some other periods, but they were also doing like move the ball 11 on 11. Is it Brian Callahan calling a specific thing? Like, we don't know what the offense is trying to get out of the day, and we'll see if tomorrow feels vastly different in that regard, and then we might have a better understanding of what the behind the scenes goals are. But regardless of what the goals were, the offense struggled to move the ball, struggled to convert, and anytime your quarterback goes 14 of 29, I would say that's a bad day. With 2 interceptions, that's a bad day.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, a bunch of beat reporters also described it as the Titans are putting too many balls on the ground, not just fumbles, but incompletions. I mean, even on 7-on-7, they weren't winning a whole lot, and a lot of those balls end up on the ground. And what do we always say? A, not real football, but also B, slanted towards the offense, or it should be. So to have so many balls end up on the ground in 7-on-7 is not a good day. And 14 of 29, 2 interceptions, goes without saying, not a good day. That Falcons defense came to play, and it wasn't just Simmons and Brownlee. I know we said it already, but the defenders who talked about the slow start, Chigakonkwo on the tight end side also talked about it. So I think it was evident in the lack of success that the offense had, throughout the practice.
I will say Cam Ward did have some positive moments. It wasn't all bad. Now, I think the overall read on that is a bad day, but it wasn't all bad. And there's always good things to build upon as well as bad things you need to fix. Reportedly, Cam Ward started to hit a bit of a stride during the second 11-on-11 period. He converted multiple first downs in a row. He had a nice throw to Calvin Ridley on the run. He had some connections with Chimere Dike. And that leads me to Calvin Ridley and Chimere Dike, who seemed like maybe the lone bright spots on offense for the Titans today. Calvin Ridley cooked AJ Terrell in 3 out of 4 one-on-one reps, and neither of those guys matched up with anyone else. They went head-to-head 4 times, and that's the Titans' number 1 receiver and the Falcons' number 1 cornerback, who was a second-team All-Pro last year. That's a great strength-on-strength matchup. And to see Calvin Ridley win it 3 out of 4 times, and even, just completing the pass. It's one thing for Calvin Ridley to win the route and get open, but then not complete the pass. So it's nice to see that the whole process was there, including the throw from Cam Ward to make sure that those were completed. And Calvin Ridley looked really good in those moments. There, I think Ben Arthur posted the 3 wins, and all 3 of them were clean, nice wins. One was a bit of more of a contested catch, but a nice period for Calvin Ridley, who stood out, I think, like I said, as one of the lone bright spots for the Titans today.
Carried that momentum over from Saturday, right, where he had 3 catches for 50 yards on Cam Ward's best drive of that preseason game. Best on best, the Titans' best receiver, Falcons' best corner. And honestly, maybe it's the Titans' fault. The Falcons also, I don't think, have a ton of superstars, but the Titans certainly don't have a ton of superstars. So going into this one, I mean, Calvin Ridley versus AJ Terrell might have been the best matchup. I mean, Jeff Simmons versus Chris Lindstrom is up there. We'll get to that. If L'Jarius Sneed was healthy, it would have been nice to see him with Drake London, but that's obviously not the case. So Calvin Ridley, AJ Terrell, one of the better ones out there. Great to see that Ridley won those matchups. I mean, he's had a phenomenal training camp, off to a great start in the preseason, obviously, and I'd say that momentum just kind of carried through Tuesday's practice. Was probably the Titans' best player on the field on Tuesday.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I've been teasing a little bit over the last few weeks my 2025 stat projections, specifically my Cam Ward stat projections. And there's a reason that I haven't just finalized them, put them together, and recorded the video yet. And it's because I kind of wanted to see how these wide receiver reps would shake out and how the performances would evolve throughout training camp. Because I originally put in a 22% target share for Calvin Ridley, expecting that there'd be a lot of mouths to feed and a lot of just passes going around to everybody. And the further we get through training camp, the more I'm inclined to put down a 30% target share for Calvin Ridley. I think he could potentially be top 10 in the entire NFL in targets on a team that might not be top 10 in pass attempts. I just feel the Titans might win 3 games this year. They might win 6 games this year. They're probably not going to win more than 8 games. But no matter how many games they win or lose, I feel pretty confident saying Calvin Ridley is poised for potentially the best year of his career. And he continues to show why we all have that confidence in him by showing up consistently every single practice in the preseason game. Like you mentioned, it's just been a constant stream of success for Calvin Ridley, stacking days and stacking that connection with Cam Ward that I could honestly see him approaching 200 targets this year. So that's going to color my stat projections when I get to that.
As it should. And I don't know if you were going to say it later, but I'm going to say it now because it feels appropriate. But it wasn't just the one-on-one wins against AJ Terrell. He arguably made the best, if not the best, the second best play of practice for the Titans during a team period where Cam Ward was under duress, rolled to his left, and hit Calvin Ridley for a big completion. So again, that was during a team period. So it wasn't just the one-on-one wins against AJ Terrell. You're seeing that chemistry between Cam Ward and Calvin Ridley just sort of carry over.
Right. And another guy who had a nice day for the Titans offense was reportedly Chimere Dike. Zach Lyons told me this in a chat group that he had a good day. We also saw him win a one-on-one rep that a video of that was posted. And shout out to the very few videos we got, because if you're not aware of this, if you're not super online, you may not be aware. The Falcons have a very strict media policy, video policy specifically. Each credentialed media member who is at practice can tweet out up to 90 total seconds of video, and this includes player interviews on the field after practice or at the podium. So if you were wondering why there were so few videos of the Titans practice today against the Falcons, it's because the beat writers out there were saving their seconds for post-practice interviews where they want to tweet out some sound bites and tweeting 4-second clips of one-on-one rep to just get something out there but not use up their entire 90-second limit that they have there. So that was something to be aware of if you're not aware of it. But we did get one video of Chimere Dike winning a one-on-one rep, and it was a great route. He gave him a little shake to the inside feint, hit him outside, and created a ton of separation. And there was also reportedly some plays in the team period that Chimere Dike got open, made catches, and was connecting with Cam Ward. However, the other Titans rookie drafted receiver struggled today. I think struggled mightily today. I believe, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I believe both of Cam Ward's interceptions came on targets to Alec Ayamaner. He reportedly struggled in the one-on-ones, struggled with some of the physicality from that Falcons defense that we know, Titans secondary coach last year came from the Falcons that had been AJ Terrell's coach, and we saw that physicality. This is a team in the Falcons defense that wants their cornerbacks to be physical, to jam receivers at the line of scrimmage, to give them the business. And it sounds like Alec Ayamaner struggled with that in Tuesday's practice.
I think it's a learning experience for him. I saw one beat reporter mention that he just wasn't attacking the ball with enough physicality and urgency. That's something they're going to identify that on tape, and they're probably going to give him a bit of an earful, use it as a teachable moment. So he's just got a theme of the day. Got to play with a bit more urgency, and that's especially notable when attacking the ball in the air, especially against NFL caliber cornerbacks. If you don't do that, they make you pay, because if you're not attacking it, chances are they are. So it's something he's got to learn from, and he looked like a rookie out there on Tuesday.
Yeah, and I mentioned that Cam Ward's first interception was one where he didn't see a zone defender sitting underneath.
Threw it right at him.
And threw it right at him. So. But there was also reports that the receiver on that play ran too deep, or the timing was off and didn't get hit out of his break in time, and that can make it look like Ward is throwing right to a defender he didn't see, if the receiver was supposed to break underneath that defender and catch the ball in front of him, that there could be some miscommunication there. And I saw that reported by multiple people. So it's hard to say if that interception is on Cam Ward or on the receiver. The point is it's on the offense, and the offense had plenty of moments today where they just weren't in sync. Like you said, too many balls on the ground. So that's the overall takeaway. I'm not going to judge Cam Ward or Alec Manor off one practice like this, but I am going to say that where the team is at, Brian Callahan said last week that he liked the trajectory they were on, and it sounds a little bit like they took a step back on that trajectory at today's practice, and that's okay, because if you take one step back, tomorrow you can take 2 steps forward, but you got to have days where you're taking steps forward, and that's what we're looking for basically the rest of this week, tomorrow and in Friday night's game. One last note on the offense, Bryce Oliver had what was reportedly called the catch of the day in 7-on-7s on a pass from Cam Ward. So you like to see that. And then one other thing on the offense that I'm just going to bring up because it strikes me as extremely odd is that there was a report of Cam Ward's completions in an early 7-on-7 period, who he was targeting. And the players were guys like Josh Wiley, Jaquan Jackson, and TJ Sheffield, and then the Bryce Oliver. Why? What's going on? Why is Cam Ward getting so many reps with Josh Wiley, who we expect to get cut, with Jaquan Jackson, who we expect to get cut, with TJ Sheffield, who we expect to get cut? I mean, we're not talking about reps with the fifth receiver, sixth receiver, seventh receiver that he might have to, it's good if he has some chemistry with them because they're going to play at some point in the year. No, this is guys that will be either off the team completely or at most on the practice squad. Why are we wasting valuable training camp reps with Cam Ward sharing the field with those guys? I don't know that there's an explanation you could give me that I would say, oh, that makes sense. I think any explanation, I would just say, that's dumb. Don't do that anymore. Give him reps with the rookie receivers, with Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, and Van Jefferson. Don't
give
put
me a
TJ.
Chance. Give me a chance. Give me a chance. 'Cause I agree with you that it's probably stupid, but there's no way it's a coincidence. There's no way it's an accident or a mistake. So the only thing I can think of as rationale is, I think Josh Wiley and Jaquan Jackson, for example, they're probably right on the roster bubble. I expect them to get cut, but it's close. Jaquan Jackson might be ahead of Xavier Restrepo at this point, which could technically, he played ahead of him on Saturday. This might be Jaquan Jackson versus James Prochet for that final roster spot. So he's on the bubble. And Josh Wiley, same thing in that mix for tight end 3 with DMR. The only thing I can think of is they're trying to give those guys a chance to show why they should make the team or kind of separate themselves or make up ground even in the position battle. And maybe one of the better ways to do that is to give them reps with the first team quarterback. Hey, you're struggling with, Tim Boyle's not there anymore, but you were struggling with Tim Boyle, yada, yada. Go make something happen with the first. I got dinged for a Meloism. That's fine. You're struggling to catch passes from Tim Boyle. He's not there anymore, but you can't use that as an excuse, right? If you've got a chance to make this roster, go make something happen with the first team quarterback. Show me that if we put you with Cam Ward, you can do something. That's the point of some of these joint practices, right? It's not just to win the days. We would have liked to see them win the day, but it's not just about that. It's also to continue evaluating your team. And I guess for that period, they use that as an opportunity with Cam Ward at quarterback to evaluate some of the back end guys.
I suppose that does make some level of sense. I still don't like it because I just, I get it that you need to evaluate those guys. And I also totally get why you might feel that Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle, who is no longer there, we're not giving them a chance to evaluate those guys. That makes sense. But what's the most important thing? The most important thing is that Cam Ward is ready to face the Denver Broncos in week 1 and wasting reps with TJ Sheffield, who, Josh Wiley may be in competition. Jaquan Jackson may be in competition. You're not going to convince me that TJ Sheffield is in competition. So anyway, that just kind of irked me. I want to see Cam Ward succeed, and I want them to put him in the best position to succeed. And running reps with TJ Sheffield isn't going to help him week 1 against Denver. That's all I'm saying. Defensively, Titans couldn't stop a nosebleed today. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of. Michael Penix was 13 of 17 on 11 on 11. Remember, that is real football, or as close to it as it gets in August. 13 of 17 on 11 on 11. And there was a Falcons beat reporter said 5 of those completions were intermediate to deep. So, no, the Titans had no luck stopping Michael Penix and the Falcons passing attack on Tuesday, and we got multiple reports. I mean, Drake London was absolutely cooking them. We saw, 7-on-7 or 1-on-1, totally not fair. He mosses Amani Aruye on a rep. He was eating a quote-unquote across the middle of the field. They couldn't stop Drake London. They had a hard time stopping Michael Penix. They couldn't stop Casey Washington, where you could insert the Snoop Dogg meme. Who? Because Casey Washington caught a 50-yard touchdown on 52. A play where I believe 52-yard touchdown on. Sorry for the 2 yards. 52-yard touchdown on the play. That was worth interrupting me. 52-yard touchdown on a play. 52 yards on a deep touchdown where I believe it was Amani Hooker was late getting over. The bigger problem with that rep, surprise, surprise, it was reported that Michael Penix had multiple seconds in the pocket. There was no pass rush on that play. There was a pass rush. It just wasn't doing anything useful on that play. And Casey Washington ends up coming free for a 52-yard touchdown.
Yeah, don't cheat Casey Washington out of those 2 yards. Who knows how many opportunities Casey Washington's going to have to get those 2 yards? I mean, who the hell is this guy? No, I think Falcons fans are excited about Casey Washington, but with who's the guy that's out and missing a ton of time for them?
Darnell Mooney's hurt for them right now.
There you go. Not that it matters to Titans fans, but the defense struggled to stop Drake London. There was also Bijan Robinson caught a wheel route touchdown over Cedric Gray in the 7-on-7 period where he just apparently burned him. I wouldn't ask Cedric Gray to cover Bijan Robinson 1-on-1 in space, but if you're a starting linebacker in the NFL, covering running backs in the passing game is part of the job. So I think James
on wheel routes, it's almost always a linebacker.
Right. And so I think James Williams has sort of established himself as the guy to beat, to knock off in the linebacker competition. And Cedric Gray is more competing for a roster spot than he is for a starting role. But plays like that one, giving up a touchdown. Now, granted, this is starting quarterback to starting running back and linebacker 3 at best in coverage. So you hope that situation doesn't have to play out in a game. But if somebody gets hurt, Cedric Gray is going to be on the field, and you want to see him make some plays in those moments. And I think the overall theme of the day, as we've been talking about here, is that the Titans just simply didn't make plays today.
On either side of the ball.
However, there were a couple moments of them making plays. Now, Jeffrey Simmons reportedly had 2 would-be sacks and was basically unblockable, according to the Falcons beat writers that were out there talking about the Falcons offense, were saying that they couldn't stop Jeffrey Simmons, that the Falcons O-line was struggling all day with Jeffrey Simmons. And now, if I'm going to take one super encouraging thing out of this practice, especially from the defensive side of the ball, it's that Jeffrey Simmons, while the team may have started slow, Jeffrey Simmons means business this year and doesn't want to be on a losing team again. And he probably will be, at least this season, but he doesn't want to be, and he's giving it everything he's got. So it's great to see him step up with 2 would-be sacks. And then the other, only other notable play on defense was Cody Barton came in for a play that was either, I think the report was, would have been incomplete or a strip fumble, caused forced fumble, depending on the referee's interpretation of did he catch the ball? Did he possess the ball? Or was it broken up? Or did he catch it and then it became a fumble? But those were the only 2 guys on defense that really did anything. It's nice to see that it was those 2 guys because they're 2 of your big team leaders, but you'd like to see more plays. You just need more playmakers to make more plays.
I'm going to boil this down to something pretty simple, and it's unfortunate, but it's true. And sometimes you can oversimplify things. On offense, Calvin Ridley made all the plays, right? Won the one-on-ones. No one else was winning one-on-ones, made one of the best plays. Calvin Ridley. On defense, we had reports that the Falcons O-line beat the crap out of the Titans D-line in 1v1 pass rush drills, right? Well, Jeffrey Simmons was making plays, right? Calvin Ridley, Jeffrey Simmons. The Titans don't have enough Calvin Ridleys and Jeffrey Simmons. That's why they don't make a lot of plays when it's not one of those guys making the play. So probably just the honest state of the union on where this roster is right now. They need more of those guys. They don't have as many as they need. When they're not there, someone else struggles to make a play.
Right. And you just need more young guys to step up and take advantage of opportunities and make plays. And that's what we hope to see tomorrow. But I think that pretty much covers the practice. Were there any other practice moments that we didn't cover? Or should we just move on to the quick little news items we should hit?
Julius Chestnut had a fumble on 11 on 11 That was one of the would-be defensive touchdowns for the Falcons. The word is they would have scooped that up and ran it back. This guy's got himself an opportunity with Tajay Spears suffering a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out multiple. We haven't actually covered that technically because after Saturday's game, we didn't know the status yet. So it's a high ankle sprain for Tajay Spears. He's sidelined for multiple weeks. A guy like Julius Chestnut, who I didn't have on my initial 53-man roster, now has a chance because I think that could mean Spears starts on the pup. We'll see, right? But when you get yourself an opportunity to climb the depth chart, you got to make plays. He didn't do that. He lost a fumble on 11-on-11, so not a good sign for Julius Chestnut.
Right. All right. Let's move on to some quick news. A quick word about Sinkers Beverages. I hope everyone attended the Sinkers 40th birthday jamboree, but if you didn't, a reminder that Sinkers is still the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville. They don't just throw birthday jamborees. They have a store, a brick and mortar store that you can go to with an extremely helpful staff who will help you find exactly what you need to make the perfect drink or drinks, depending on how many people you're trying to serve. So check out Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville, or find them on Uber Eats. They'll deliver everything straight to your door. If you head to the I haven't said this in a while, Justin. If you head to the Sinkers Beverages website or check the link in this podcast description, you can join the In-Crowd. In-Crowd members get access to allocated wines and spirits, exclusive events, early access to barrel releases, and more. Sinkers.com. Check it out. Sinkersbeverages.com. Check it out. Look at that, Justin. That was from memory. I didn't even read that off a script. It's like riding a bike doing the Sinkers read for me at this point. But let's finish off this episode with some quick notes. So yes, we talked about it a lot. Tim Boyle. Let Tim Boyle in the pot of water while we get a new quarterback here, because the Titans have cut Tim Boyle after his dreadful 0.6 quarterback rating performance in Saturday's preseason game and signed our old friend Trevor Siemian, who I think we speculated they could potentially bring back when Will Levis went down, and they do end up bringing Trevor Siemian back. Saw some great photoshops of Trevor Siemian in a Titans jersey right after that news was announced. So Siemian was at practice on Tuesday and reportedly did okay for a guy who just walked in off the street. He was throwing some passes with some anticipation, apparently. I mean, all I know is that Trevor Siemian probably gives the young and back-end pass catchers a better chance to do something in Friday's preseason game than Tim Boyle did. Because as we said multiple times leading up to that Tim Boyle was potentially the worst quarterback in the entire National Football League. Like we said that on multiple different podcasts, and he kind of proved us right. And now he's no longer on the roster. So that was a big news. And then the Titans also activated Lloyd Cushenberry from the PUP list, or the PUP list. And those things both happened on Monday. Any comment?
I mean, Trevor Siemian is definitely better than Tim Boyle. The Titans still have a backup quarterback problem, probably, but they've made an upgrade at QB3. Lloyd Cushenberry news potentially big. He said that that's the plan when asked about is he hoping to be ready for week 1. Good to see him get back on the field soon, hopefully. It sounds like he's going to start doing some individual stuff and try to ramp up from there. So it sounds like he's on the right track, and maybe there's a chance he's under center week 1. He'll have some extra motivation that it's against his old Denver Broncos team. So great to see that he's on the right trajectory.
Agreed. And then on Tuesday, we got more news. The Titans have waived David Benda and Anthony Orji. Orji waived with an injury designation. Sad day for me and my Longhorn Hook'em fandom. Sad day for Tavondre Sweat, who played with David Benda at Texas. And I guess he just wasn't cutting it. So too bad, so sad, so long. Titans did sign 2 more linebackers to replace those 2 in Kaliki Hudson. Did I say that right? And Blake Lynch. Not sure if those guys actually practiced on Tuesday, but they are officially now Titans, and I don't know if they'll stick very long, but this is, again, as I said before, a position that I'm fully expecting waiver claims to be made at, because it's like the Titans are just trying out everyone off the street. Who can you play linebacker? Can you play linebacker? Anyone want to try playing linebacker for the Tennessee Titans? Come on down, give it a shot. We'll give you a practice. If you suck, we'll cut you and sign someone else.
Well, this room already didn't have enough depth than Anthony Orji, who I thought was going to make the team, suffered a season-ending ACL injury. So this was actually a waive injured designation for him. So I think he'll revert back to IR when he goes unclaimed. And he'll spend the whole year, obviously, on IR. So really unfortunate break for him. Otis Reese didn't play in Saturday's preseason game. I thought that was really weird. I'd love to know why. Because if he's not linebacker 4, I mean, I don't know who is. And don't even get into the linebacker 5 territory. If they keep a 5th, it'd be like a Curtis Jacobs. They've got Amari Burney on the roster. Obviously not satisfied with Benda. They cut him. Now they bring on 2 guys. They're just, throwing shit at the wall at linebacker to see if something sticks.
Yeah, and that's not a great strategy, but it's kind of all they have right now. And I guess fingers crossed that Cody Barton and James Williams stay healthy this year, because otherwise you're going to see guys on the field who are going to give up plays. They will get beat because they just simply aren't good enough to be starting level NFL players. A couple other little things. Jalen Harrell did not practice on Tuesday. Matt Landers did not practice on Tuesday. L'Jarius Sneed is obviously still on the PUP list. And Brandon Allen apparently got stepped on or kicked in the leg, had to leave practice, went inside with a trainer midway through practice, and then came back out with stitches. So toughed it out. Good for him. I know some Titans fans may have been like, oh, a new QB2, Brandon Allen's hurt. But no, it's just a minor little cut that he had to get stitched up.
Yeah, not a big deal there. He came back, and I think he only did sprints after practice is essentially what he returned for. But it was good to see him out there in general.
The fact that he could do sprints with stitches in his leg is pretty impressive, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good to see that he was able to come back and avoided anything seriously.
All right, there you go. We recapped Tuesday's joint practice with the Atlanta Falcons. As Justin said earlier, we will be back to recap Wednesday's joint practice with the Atlanta Falcons. No promises on the timing of the release of that podcast. I have a pretty busy workday tomorrow, and this Falcons practice schedule is kind of bullshit. They don't practice till 10 a.m. Eastern time in Atlanta. What's going on with that? That's a very late start time. Also, just the whole thing is weird. No Titans coaches spoke before or after practice. I think it's the first practice since I think it's the first practice of this entire year that Brian Callahan or a coordinator did not formally speak to media. So just a weird situation all around. But Brian Callahan will talk to the media tomorrow morning, and Cam Ward and maybe someone else, selected players, it says, but at least Cam Ward will be speaking tomorrow after practice. So we're going to hold off on recording to get some sound from that, or at least react to what they have to say. Again, I have a busy day, so not sure when we'll get the pod out tomorrow, but it will be out, recapping that practice. And then, Justin, are we going to do a Thursday preseason game preview?
Your call. We can if you'd like to. And then regarding tomorrow's show, Wednesdays, as Graver said, it will be out on Wednesday. Just don't know if it'll be quite as early as it was today, but we'll have a full recap from the second and final day of joint practices with the Falcons.
So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Remember to like this video, drop a comment below. Anything that concerned you from practice, air it out in the comments, and Justin and I will get in there to either confirm that you should be concerned about that or explain why maybe it's not as big a deal as you think. Until next time, thanks again to Sinkers Beverages. Y'all stay safe out there. And Samuel L. Jackson says, tighten up!
A Broadway sports media production.